want our recipe plugin to have its own pages. We want to take advantage of the categories and tags and all the editors that come with posts, but on its own page. It would be quite cumbersome to have to set this all up. You may be thinking about creating a page similar to how we created the theme options page for our theme. But there's actually a better way to do this, and that's by creating a custom post type. In the resources section, I provide a link to the post types codex page. By default, WordPress provides 5 post types: posts, pages, attachments, revisions, and navigation menus. So, what's the advantage of creating a custom post type? Well, you'll see in just a few moments. Let's create a custom post type. We're going to add an action hook called init. This hook is triggered when WordPress begins to initialize the data required for the current page. This hook should be used to help set up your plugin. The function we want to call is recipe.init. This is where we should set up our custom post type. Let's create a file called init.php inside the includes folder and define our function here. Make sure to include it from your plugin file. In the resources section, you'll find a link to the register_post_type function. This function is extensively documented, so I suggest you take some time to read it after this lecture is over. Go down to the example section, and we're going to copy and paste this bit of code and paste it into our init function. Let's go over what it does. So first up, we have this $labels array. All these values are actually just pieces of text that will appear throughout our plugin. Most of them are self-explanatory. If we look at the documentation, you'll find the description for each one. You'll notice that each label is translated. There's a new translation function called _x. This function is the same as the double score function, except the second parameter allows you to add a context. This is useful for when you have two words that are the same, but they have different meanings in the current translation. For example, the word base is spelled the same, but there are two meanings. It can either mean the fish bass or the instrument bass. Therefore, this _x function can be useful to let the translator know about the various meanings and what the word currently being translated means. It doesn't really do anything for the plugin itself, it's just helpful for the translator. Let's change the text domain for each of these functions to our text domain, which is recipe. Next, I want you to change each text value to recipe instead of books, like so. WordPress will take care of placing these labels in the appropriate spot. I'll also change these from the _x function to the normal double underscore function. I'm going to remove any context as we really don't need any contexts for the translator. Next up is the $args array. This will contain a list of settings for our custom post type. The first one is the labels key. This will be set to our $labels array we created previously. Next up is the description. This is just a simple description about our custom post type. I'm going to set this to a custom post type for recipes. The public value is whether or not the content generated from this post type is available to read on the front end. Set this to true since we want it to be public. Publicly queryable asks if this post type can be used in URL to query it. This should also be true. Show UI means should WordPress generate a UI. Set this to true as we do want WordPress to generate the UI for us. We will later extend this UI to suit our needs. Show in the menu asks us if this post type should appear in the menu of the admin dashboard. Set this to true. Query var is similar to publicly queryable, except it works on the back end. Let's leave it as true. Rewrite allows us to customize the URL for our custom post type. This accepts an array, but we only want to change the slug. Let's set this to recipe. You'll see what this looks like when we create a recipe. Capability type allows you to define how this post type is handled by users. For example, who gets to publish recipes and who gets to review other recipes, etc. We set this to post since we want to let WordPress just use its default settings. This means that contributors can create recipes but can't publish. Editors can also modify recipes and unpublish them as well. Basically, this takes care of permissions and such. HasArchive asks if our post type will have an archive. Let's leave this as true. Hierarchical asks if the plugin allows for recipes to have parent recipes and so on and so forth. In our case, it doesn't make much sense for a recipe to be built on top of another, so we're going to leave this as false. Menu position is the location this menu item will be placed. I'm going to change this to 20. This value should be experimental for you. If you believe that your custom post type should be placed at the top, then you should set this to 1. The lower the number, the lower the position. Supports is a very important value to set. Let's take a look at the documentation for a second. This is an array of components we can add to our post type. Which are they exactly? Well, if we take a look at a regular post, you can see we have this title field, a content editor, categories, tags, etc. We can actually use those in our post type without having to recreate them ourselves. Here's what we want to add support for: title, editor, author, thumbnail. We don't want excerpts or comments. That's it. Well, actually, there is one more value we want to add, and that's taxonomies. Taxonomies may seem like a complex term, but it isn't. Taxonomies are basically just words or phrases related to our post. For example, when you create tags, WordPress's search engine will search for these tags and find what posts have those same tags. You can create your own taxonomies, but we actually want to take advantage of WordPress's built-in taxonomies. In our case, we want to take advantage of categories and tags. So this key's value should be an array with categories and post_tag. Now all we have to do is call the function register_post_type. The first parameter is the name of our post type, which is recipe. The second parameter is all the settings for our post type. Refresh the admin dashboard and you should now see our recipe post type being displayed. Just like that, WordPress will generate all these pages for us. You can even see our labels being outputted. You can create recipes and manage them easily using WordPress's UI. All it took was a few lines of code. We can now begin extending this post type.